I would like to begin giving my testimony. I haven't ever shared it live. You know, a lot of people talk these days about how the miracles of God are no longer for the believer, but they are for the unbeliever so that people will believe. I want you to know that that is not true. That is not, absolutely not true. I am a miracle. It is a miracle that I am still alive. I almost died from septic shock, and God intervened in my life in a way that was absolutely totally miraculous. Even the doctor himself later said that was not me, it was a higher power. I said yes, it was God. um, it's a long story. It began when all of it, you know, I've had a lot of things happen in my life that are supernatural, so both good and bad. When I was 6 years old, my dad joined a cult. He came from a very Christian family, and things began to happen that were not good. But I also had a lot of things that were absolutely amazing that happened that were God. And one of those was that I went into septic shock. Back when I was about 14 years old, my best friend's mother was reading palms, and she was at their house one day, and my friend said, "Why don't you let Esther read your palm?" Well, you know, I didn't know any better at the time. And she said, "You're going to die when you're about 34, 35 years old." She said, "You're going to get married very, very young. You're going to have 4 or 5 children. You're going to probably get married when you're like 15 or 16 years old," which in fact I did get married at 15 years old, the month before my 16th birthday. And no, I wasn't pregnant, just so you know. But yes, I did get married very young. I had 4 children. At the age of 34 years old, I had just a very minor surgery in an outpatient place. The doctor, I didn't realize at the time, was not allowed to practice at the hospitals anymore. He had caused harm to a lot of people. In fact, a 2-year-old had died from the same thing that I had, which was MRSA, MRSA, methicillin-resistant staph. It's the strain of staph that is antibiotic resistant. I'd been in the ICU for about 9 hours that 2 different doctors couldn't decide what was wrong, with classic symptoms of shock. I had been feeling bad for about 2 weeks after the surgery, and I'd been telling that surgeon that I had pus draining, and he continued to ignore it. I saw him that Friday, and by Sunday, well, in fact, that night my temperature went up to about 104. By Sunday, Mother's Day, it was like I was in a deep, dark tunnel. And I kept telling everyone, I've never been this sick before. I mean, I'm really, really sick. I had been vomiting. I could not stop. It was continuous. For 2 weeks before that, I had been working. You know, I'm an RN, and I was in home health. And it was like I just had this crushing in my chest or on my sternum, like I couldn't breathe, and these horrible pains that would hit my head. And anyway, by that Friday, I had to have my sister take me home because my teeth were chattering from my temperature being so high. And by Sunday, I continued to just get worse and worse and continue to vomit. Couldn't keep anything at all down. I kept asking for my mom to come get me. She did come get me, and she took me to the emergency room. After being in the emergency room 9 hours, they decided to put me on a floor for 23-hour observation. And the doctor that was called in was a little Indian doctor that I had worked with in home health. I had also had some of his patients when I had worked at the hospital on the telemetry floor. And I had a lot of his patients when I did staffing for a mental health facility at that time, and it was also a drug rehabilitation facility. He is a very good doctor, and he took over my care, but the surgeon had come in and decided that he needed to cut me open right there in ICU without anything for pain, which is just unheard of. I thought I'd died and gone to a Nazi torture camp. And the nurse was holding my hand and saying, "I'm right here with you, honey." And she's just screaming at him. The whole hospital was just beside themselves. Um, the other doctor that took over had them put me in ICU. He told my mom and my sister, I give you no hope. No hope. She will not make it through the night. I cannot give you any hope. You'll have to excuse my voice, and I have a sore throat, and I've had really bad allergies. Um, so after being in ICU for a while and then running all kinds of tests, and I had tubes and IVs and everything else hooked up. I was in systems failure. Everything was shutting down. I was already at a point of what they call DIC, where the blood components, the easiest way to explain it is the blood components begin to separate, like the red blood cells from the plasma, and fluid was shifting spaces. I was extremely swollen. I heard the doctor. I hadn't really seen a lot of anything. My hearing was extremely acute, and they say the hearing is the last to go. They believe, but I heard him just really upset, ranting and raving in the room. She's dying, and for what? She's 34 years old. She's got 4 children. She's an RN, and for what? For what? For what? And I remember just staring at the ceiling thinking, he's actually talking about me. I'm going to die. And I began to pray. And you hear people talk a lot about the peace that surpasses all understanding. And I felt that peace and the absolute presence of the Lord in such a powerful way that there are no words to describe it. I've never had the words to describe it. I don't think I ever will have the words to describe it. I don't think I will ever feel that kind of peace in this life again. And of course, we all have that innate desire to live, but at the same time, I was like, Lord, I just want to go home. I didn't want that to end, but I was praying, Lord, I don't want to leave my children. I want to stay for my children and my family. And at that time, my blood pressure began to go back up. And things began to turn around. It was a long, difficult process of healing. I was on vancomycin IV I was in the hospital for 19 days. I was out on it for 2 weeks. I was back in again for 2 weeks on vancomycin, and then there was still the whole process of getting the localized infection to heal. After I got home, I didn't almost died then, but I did have a carbon monoxide poisoning from a fireplace. And I was like, okay, I think somebody's out to get me here. Then years later, I did almost die again, and that doctor did in fact lose his license. I've had some run-ins with some doctors. There's some wonderful doctors, but the one that took care of me at the hospital later at his office, he said, that wasn't me that healed you. I said, yes, I'm aware that it wasn't you that healed me. And he said, it was a higher power. I said, yes, it absolutely was God that healed me. So, for anyone out there who's skeptical or thinks that God does not heal today, or that he only performs miracles for those who do not yet believe, so that they will believe, I'm here to tell you that he does perform miracles, and he does do it for those who are his children, who are believers. And it is still for today. He's still on the throne. Jesus Christ is still the healer. So never doubt that, and don't give up hope. I love you, and I thank you, and I just want to let you all know that I have more things to say. I've had a lot of things in my life that have happened that have been supernatural, and I would like to continue to give my testimony, so I will do that at a later time. But good night, and God bless.